Welcome back to the Circle of Life, Level 3. Let's get started by reviewing our key point, which is living things interact with their environment in order to meet their needs and survive. To do so, every organism inherits characteristics from its parents that allow it to adapt and change to meet its needs. Organisms that do not inherit useful adaptations that give them an advantage will not survive as it competes with other organisms for resources. We find organisms living together and using their adaptations and instincts in ecosystems around the world. Producers, consumers, and decomposers play an important role in creating a diverse and balanced ecosystem. Our big question, what do living things need in order for them to survive? We have learned many things that they need in order to survive. Today we're going to find about one more thing that they're going to need in order for them to survive. Our mission objective is to describe how life within an ecosystem interacts with each other. Our challenges, what do organisms need in order to survive and where can they find it? Identify the 3 different types of consumers. What is the job of a scavenger? How do decomposers help an ecosystem stay in balance? We're going to watch a longer video today. It's going to go over everything that we're going to talk about today, so give it your full attention. It's going to do a really good job of explaining everything that we're going to talk about, and then when it's done, I will go through and talk about each of the things individually. So please give it your full attention.
Welcome to Dinner at the Jeromes. My name is Dr. Brian Jerome, and during the next few minutes, we're going to see where all this food comes from and how it relates to food chains and food webs.
In other words, we are going to study what eats what. I like to come to the dinner table with a good appetite because I want to sample many different types of food. When we feel hungry, we know it's time to eat. Hunger is the body's way of telling us we need food. We need food to live, to walk, fish, and do all the things we enjoy. Food gives us energy to do all these things. Food is also sometimes called energy. All living things, including humans, plants, and animals, need energy or food to survive. Besides energy, animals have other needs as well, such as water. Animals also need a place in which to live. Seals and sea lions live in and around the ocean. Deer live in the forest. And people live in houses. Humans and many other living things need many things to live. Food is one of the most important. Have you ever thought about where all the things you eat, such as broccoli, come from? Or lettuce we eat in salads? Or tomatoes? Or fish? Or turkey? And where does pumpkin pie come from? Or how about the milk you drink? Where do you think it comes from? Plants, such as these growing alongside the ocean, and animals get their food or energy in different ways. First, let's take a look at a plant called broccoli. Believe it or not, broccoli grows on a green plant. Broccoli is a plant that makes its own energy from water, gases in the air, nutrients in the soil, and the sun. Plants like these flowers are called producers because they produce their own energy. People eat lots of things that come from producers or plants, such as apples that grow on apple trees. Baked squash, seen here, comes from this vegetable that is attached to this plant. And even popcorn comes from a plant. It comes from the ears of the corn plant. On our dinner table is a salad that is made up mostly of lettuce. Lettuce is the leaf of the lettuce plant that can be picked. In some places, lettuce grows in large fields. Another common plant that we add to salad is the tomato. Tomatoes grow on plants like this one. While plants can make their own energy, animals need to get their energy by eating other things. Consumers are animals that eat other things. These horses are eating hay and are called consumers. These beautiful butterflies are consumers and eat nectar from plants. Animals that eat just plants are called herbivores. Many herbivores, like sheep and cows, eat grass. Other animals, like trout, eat food such as this insect. Animals, like this trout, eat other animals and are called carnivores. Carnivores are meat eaters. Animals that seek out other animals to eat are called predators. This bear is a predator, eating other animals such as squirrels. Prey are the animals which serve as food for other animals. The bear's prey includes mice, snakes, and other animals. Some animals, like us humans and bears, eat both plants and animals. Animals that eat both plants and animals are called omnivores. Many animals, such as bears, are omnivores, eating both plants, such as wild grapes, and eating animals, such as squirrels. Food chains show what living things eat. We call it a food chain because each living thing is linked to the other like links in a chain. We can make a picture or diagram that shows what different living things eat. We call this diagram a food chain. Let's start with a simple food chain. Earlier, we said that broccoli is a plant that gets its energy from the sun. We can pick broccoli, cook it, and eat it. This food chain diagram shows with arrows where each living thing gets its energy. Here, the sun gives the broccoli plant energy. The broccoli plant gives people energy when they eat it. The broccoli is a producer, and the human is a consumer. Another example of a simple food chain involves lettuce. Lettuce is a plant that gets energy from the sun. People then pick it and eat it in things like salads. This food chain diagram shows that the sun gives the lettuce plant energy. The lettuce gives people energy when they eat the lettuce. The lettuce is a producer and the human is the consumer. Let's look at one of our favorite drinks, milk. Milk comes from cows. Cows eat plants such as grass, and they use the energy from the grass to make milk. Farmers milk the cows with special machinery, and then we drink the milk. This is the end of the food chain. This food chain is a little longer. You can see the sun gives the grass energy, and then the grass is eaten by cows, which create milk that we drink. In this food chain, grass is a producer, with the cows and people being consumers. Let's look at a carnivore, a trout. Trout taste great. Trout live in streams where many plants make their home. In this stream live many different kinds of small plants shown here. These tiny plants are often eaten by small insects that live in the water. These insects are also eaten by trout. The trout are sometimes caught by humans and then are cooked for a meal. In this food chain diagram, we can see that the sun provides energy to the tiny plants, which are eaten by insects, which are eaten by trout, which then are sometimes eaten by people. The plants are the producers, and the insects and the trout and humans are consumers.
Now the main feature of our dinner the turkey. Sorry to say, but this turkey was once a bird that lived on a farm.
Or in the wild, such as these in this flock. Turkeys are omnivores and eat both plants, such as corn, or they eat insects, such as grasshoppers. Let's suppose our turkey ate grasshoppers. And grasshoppers most commonly eat plants. These animals put together in a food chain look like this, with the sun supplying energy to plants, which are eaten by the grasshopper, which is eaten by the turkey, which is then eaten by humans. The plant is a producer, with all the other animals being consumers.
I've had enough to eat for now. Why don't we take a walk before having dessert? There's a pond nearby that I'd like to show you. Let's go. This pond is home to many different kinds of plants and animals, and it's a great place to study who eats who.
There are many different plants that live here, including cattails, shrubs and trees, and lots of small plants that live in the water. Fish commonly eat plants in the pond. Beavers, with strong jaws and large teeth, also eat plants, such as trees, and use them to make their houses as well. Salamanders, which also live in this pond, can also feed on plants. Crayfish will also eat small fish and salamanders, as well as many different kinds of plants. This raccoon is an omnivore. It eats fish, salamanders, plants, and even crayfish. All this eating is represented in something called a food web. A food web is like a spider's web. It is made of many different strands woven together. A food web is made of many food chains. It is a better picture of what really occurs in nature. This is a diagram of a food web. Each arrow shows that energy or food is eaten. You can see that the plants serve as food to fish, insects, salamanders, beavers, crayfish, and raccoons. Insects are eaten by fish, crayfish, and salamanders. The raccoon can eat the fish, salamander, crayfish, and plants. And the crayfish eats small fish, salamanders, and plants. Our food web is missing an important living thing called decomposers. Decomposers, like fungi, work to break down dead plants and animals. Without decomposers, dead things would never decay or rot away. Decomposers are at work in many places, like in your kitchen on foods like cheese, bread, and fruit. Decomposers in the pond act on plants like cattails, and on dead fish as well.
The decomposers at work here are small living things called bacteria that you can't see with the naked eye. In fact, a single glass of water contains thousands of bacteria.
Our food web looks like this when we add decomposers. Notice that all the plants and animals can be broken down by decomposers when they die. The decomposers return important chemicals and matter to the living plants and animals in the pond.
It's been fun looking at life here in the pond. Let's head back to the house and have some dessert. Pumpkin pie, my favorite. Take a minute to think about how pumpkin pie fits into food chains and webs, and talk about it with your teacher after the video. I hope you've enjoyed dinner here at the Jeromes and seeing how different foods fit into food chains and food webs. I am sure it'll give you something to think about next time you sit down for dinner.
Okay, so let's now talk about food and energy. Sunlight, as the video said, provides the main source of energy for all life on Earth. Energy from sunlight, which we call solar energy, affects both living and non-living parts of an ecosystem, meaning sunlight is very important. It's going to affect living and non-living, both biotic living or abiotic, remember, non-living things. But that's because organisms need energy to live and survive. And food is the biggest energy source for organisms in an ecosystem. And where they get their energy is going to be from the sun. The sun is the biggest energy source in the world. Much of our food comes from plants. Plants use the sunlight to make their own food, meaning plants are very important to provide energy for everybody. If we didn't have plants, we wouldn't have energy, and we're going to explain why that is as we move forward. Since plants produce or make their own food, they are called producers. It's important to know that plants make more energy than they need to grow, and plants store this food, this extra energy, in their roots, leaves, fruits, and seeds. Then they pass this extra energy that is in their roots, leaves, fruits, and seeds on to consumers. These are the organisms that cannot make their own food, like you and I, and have to consume or eat other organisms to survive. There are different types of consumers, each with their own adaptations. One type of consumer is an herbivore. Herbivores are organisms that get their energy by eating plants. Deer and cows are examples of herbivores. And some adaptations they have are front teeth that rip the leaves off of plants, flat back teeth to grind the leaves, and a 4-part stomach to help digest the food. So they are especially adapted to be herbivores. Then we have carnivores. Carnivores are organisms that get their energy by eating animals or meat. A mountain lion is an example of a carnivore. And they also have special adaptations. So, for example, they have claws for catching prey and sharp teeth for eating their prey. Then we have omnivores. Omnivores are organisms that get their energy by eating both plants and animals. Some humans are examples of omnivores, meaning we eat both meats and vegetables, or meat and fruit. Some are just herbivores, and that's okay, but some humans are also omnivores. Their body allows them to eat and digest both plants and animals. Scavengers are organisms that get their energy from eating dead plants and animals. The turkey vulture is an example of a scavenger. Scavengers have sharp teeth to tear meat off of dead animals. That's their adaptation. Decomposers play a vital role in an ecosystem. They digest the waste and remains of dead plants and animals. They break down dead plant and animal parts into smaller parts that are put back into the soil, air, and water. So they're really important. If we didn't have them, we would have all sorts of yucky stuff around the world. Plants will then use these materials. When animals eat the plants, these important parts are passed from plants to animals. Decomposers make sure that the ecosystem stays in balance because they replace the energy that was used by the producers and consumers. Bacteria, fungi, or mushrooms and insects are examples of decomposers. Here you see an example of a food chain, and this example is also in your notes. I want you to read through it. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this slide. You can read through it in your notes, but it is there in your notes, and now we're going to talk more about a food chain. A food chain shows how plants and animals rely on each other for food. The energy made by producers can be given to consumers when they are eaten by consumers. A food chain always begins with the energy given off by the sun. The flow of energy through a food chain always travels in only the one direction, and the arrows show the flow of energy, and they point from the being eaten to the eater. So from the producer to the consumer, kind of, although a consumer can also consume a consumer. Predators get their energy they need to survive by hunting and killing prey. Then we have a food web. A food web is many food chains connected together. An ecosystem has many food chains, and the same food source can be part of more than one food chain. So meaning that one plant can be part of one food chain, but it can also be a part of another food chain. Just like an animal or another organism can be part of multiple food chains. In any ecosystem, producers and consumers can be eaten by more than one kind of organism. So humans aren't the only consumer that eats broccoli. There are other animals that eat broccoli. Some predators eat more than one prey. Just like humans, we don't eat just one type of meat. We don't just eat cow meat. We sometimes also eat chicken meat. As a result, one food chain will often overlap with other food chains. This is called a food web, which is a very important part of an ecosystem. Many things can affect the food web. Disease, storms, pollution, and hunting are events that can affect a food web. This is the end of this mission, which is also going to be the end of this level, which is almost going to be close to the end of this quest. Please make sure you follow up by watching the level review video that follows this, and then you are ready to move on and really do a good job on the boss level. If you have any questions, please let me know.